if the topic is how to speak clearly and enunciate well, what can people actually do right now to get better at that?
And this is everybody. It's not just my clients that are English as a second language, but breathe. One thing, and I even have to do this, we need to breathe and take in those deep breaths, practice breathing, even if it's before. So even before this call or video call, I took some deep breaths. It gives you that pushed out lung feeling. It makes you feel like you're whole. It makes you feel like you can go on and make that full sentence. But it also helps you with 3 different, I'm going to call them voicing categories.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tone. Tone is quality. When you think of raspy, kind of broken, or that kind of sectioned off speech where you feel like your throat feels a little stuck, tone is one of them. Pitch, so that's that squeezed higher or low pitch rate, so it helps you with that. And then volume is literally what you think of when you're turning up the radio, so it helps with those 3 things in an aspect of control. Like, I have control over my tone, I have control over my pitch or my volume, so it helps you feel like you can guide your voicing in a really clean way.
It sounds really technical, Karen. So let's say someone that I don't know anything about tone, I don't know anything about pitch, I don't know anything about volume, but actually I want to go back first. Are there certain ways to breathe, or should we just breathe? Like, are there certain things that we can do?
Speaking of really technical, it's definitely more of a technical word, which I feel like everyone would be like, what? I have a diaphragm? What is that? But yeah, you're breathing from low in your body, low in your chest, kind of above your belly. You want to kind of push your air down in a controlled way. So as an example, I would take my air in slowly, breathe my air out slowly in a controlled way. I keep using the word control because when we get nervous or stressed out, and I think, Kit, this is an area that you get to be involved in a lot, is that we can start to take quick breaths and it feels like our chest is bouncing around in there, which is then I'm losing control in my voice. Tone is one of the examples I gave, which is that quality, which is that like I'm breaking up in my throat area. Or pitch, if I'm kind of squeezing my voice in and I can raise my pitch or I can lower my pitch. We feel like we can't do that, or we don't have the ability to when we feel like we're running out of the air. So pushing your air low and bringing that kind of already used or expended air up is definitely what I'm meaning toward that breathing aspect. And then volume. No yelling, no screaming, but also not too quiet. So air is how we control that as well.
Karen, can you walk us through any exercises that we can do, even something that the audience can follow us along right now that we can do? Like we both can do it.
Absolutely. The one that I just did is I'm big into picturing sort of a waterfall aspect. So like breathing, I picture kind of that backwards camera of like the waterfall coming back over the avalanche or over the ledge rather, or cliff. And then I think about when I'm breathing out, like I feel like the water just comes kind of slow and smashes into the lake, ponds, ocean, whatever it happens to be. So
how did you get that one? Did you just randomly think about it one day?
I did. I like to listen to calm, not hypnosis, but like a calm meditation. And so whenever it's water-based, I'm like, I am there. That's what I like the most. So I was like, that's what helps calm me down, is like picturing the water coming up and then the water coming down. Because I always focus on what it sounds like with the water rolling over the side and landing and splashing and then kind of moving forward. So it kind of, I don't know, it worked for me.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say this. Okay, let's say people they say, okay, Karen, I got it. Breathe. I'm gonna breathe more. Okay, then what's next to speaking more clearly and then say, well.
So you've got your breath down. You're ready. You've got that good tone, quality, and volume. I know that this is kind of overplayed, but speaking slowly and then in the next second I'm going to say, but not too slow, which is really unfair. But I think when we're in this speaking position, and it doesn't matter if you're myself or your kid, we are speaking all day long to someone we maybe have never actually met in real life, or we might, like Kit, be speaking in front of a big audience, or with me, be speaking one-on-one with some type of executive. And it can be intimidating. It can be scary. Maybe the topic is uncomfortable. Maybe that person throws me off in their question. I think, oh gosh, I don't actually know the answer to that. So speaking slow is another way to have control over your emotions too, to have control over that conversational piece, whatever the topic, be it a conversation with a loved one, or in Kit's case, in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. Being able to speak slowly shows that you are calm, shows that you have control over your subject matter, and gives a level of confidence that I think kind of portrays to your audience that you know what you're talking about. You're not necessarily speaking about expert level type things, but that your information is very valuable. I think that one thing I hear from my clients a lot, or clients that have just signed on, new clients, is that they think, I want to speak like a CEO. I want to be represented in my community or in my background. I want people to take me seriously. When you look and listen to any CEO, TED Talker, whomever it is, they have such a guidance on their voice and what they're giving out as far as speed. You never hear them go this insane pace, unless it's like a joke or something that they're making a delivery on purpose. They always have this steady rhythm, or this steady cadence is sometimes what we call it. And it's a slow moving speaking pattern. It gives them the stage or the floor and makes people kind of instantly, I'm not sure if Kit, you feel the same way, but I feel drawn to wanting to listen and wanting to know what they're speaking about. So it's the speed in which they're speaking that I find that.
Yeah, I definitely would say I'm drawn to those speakers that have a command, whether they're speaking, on stage or one-on-one, when they can just command people with their silence and the pace of speech. So when it comes to slowing down, well, actually, is it as easy as just thinking I need to slow down my speech, or do you have certain exercises that we can do to say, okay, let's practice in this way so we can slow down the way we speak, or just think, slow it down?
And I think as far as presentations go, that's the one where I tell clients, you need to practice. You need to have it in front of you. Whereas a lot of clients are like, I'm so good, like off the cuff, I'm just going to wing it. We have those two different types of people. Let's talk about both of them. You can, in your day-to-day practice of communication, use speaking slowly. You can kind of guide yourself, even in our conversation here. We can use, talking about who's picking up our child from daycare. That's one thing where we can use to speak slowly. Speaking to a friend on the phone, we can practice there. Maybe those are the things that someone who's more of a wing it personality might prefer. And then we have the other types of personalities that want their presentation in front of them. They have their deck or their PowerPoint slides. They have their meeting agenda, whichever it is, and they can kind of practice going through that. And they give themselves a good map, kind of like a visual picture of, how do I get from A to B? Okay, I'm going to go this way. And they'll kind of string their thoughts along instead of, in that meeting, feeling rushed or feeling pressured, or, oh gosh, here comes the unwanted topic of this meeting's agenda. And they're going to feel themselves speed up. And that's in that active moment to say, I need to have control. I know that, employee number 4 over there, or peer coworker over here, is giving me kind of a view of their dislike of our topic. That's when I'm feeling like I'm going to speed up. But I need to remain in control and feel like I'm going to be a slow speaker, because this message is important. I'm feeling myself getting stressed out. but giving those little reminders, visual reminders really, may be audible too, as far as what the employee has asked, but just kind of guiding ourselves through.
I also noticed as you were talking, Karen, that the speaker should know and be aware when they're speaking too fast. Is that correct? I noticed you kind of said that, like, oh, I'm speaking too fast, therefore I have to slow down.
Yeah, know your audience, read the crowd. You'll know when you're looking out, and I know I'm on my computer here, but looking out and being able to see someone picking up their phone and doing something, or someone feverishly writing something down, and you're watching them, you're either going to be rattled just by watching, everybody writing something down, thinking, what are they writing down? What did I say? And you're going to start finding yourself in your brain, in your mind. Know that. You recognize that, know that, you think about that. I do. I think that that's a good tell of a good speaker, is to say, all right, this person has turned their body away from me. This person has their eyes on me. This person is looking down. You're picking up on body language, actions, breathing, their breathing patterns. You can hear if they're huffing and puffing and making these sounds, or you can see if they're engaged. All right, I got it. They're all looking at me. They're smiling. Their head nods are everywhere. So it's pick up on the crowd.
Pick up on the crowd. I love that. Okay, what else can we do to speak clearly? We have breathing. We have slowing down, picking up on the crowd, seeing what's around us. What else?
Pausing between your ideas is going to help a lot. It's going to help with the breathing, because you're taking a breath at that time, I'm hoping. You're going to have that slow pattern because you're taking those pauses, but it's actually to help prevent those filler words. That's that kind of rhythmic flow. As speakers, and this just isn't just the American culture, this is all cultures, we've kind of grown up to think, if someone's not speaking, and there's that dead air, we use that term. If someone's not speaking, I need to push something into that bubble. Being able to gain that control and say, all right, I'm pausing in the right spot, but I'm pausing, taking that breath and shifting to my next idea. Maybe we're going from, in a meeting, we're going from the current project that we're all working on, and we're trying to wrap it up, and I'm pivoting over to the next project's kickoff, let's say. And I know that there are going to be a million questions right off the bat of, well, why are we doing this project when we could do this? So we're kind of breathing, or bringing in that stress of the knowledge of what your team might be focused on. That's a good time to take that pause, move into what your new topic is, the new project, and say, hey, I'd like to shift focus onto our new project, Legos 1, 2, 3. I don't know, I made up a project name. And
I'll join that project.
Ooh, I would totally too. I love Legos. And switch into that project, because I think, and then you can kind of pitch, Legos 1, 2, 3 is going to really help us with the project that we're wrapping up. I know it may seem like a long shot to everybody, but I know, and I have the projections and I have the numbers, that it's going to be a great stepping stone to kind of give them the support up front. We all have the training in our employees. That's not really what we're speaking of, but taking that pause to say, I know it's coming. I know how to handle it in advance. I'm pivoting. You guys are all coming with me. Here we are at our new speaking point, my new idea. Trying to prevent I'd like to, and I know that you guys aren't going to be, I know it's tough. We're just switching over here. It makes us feel like we're all over the place, which makes me feel nervous. I start speeding up. My voice and vocal tones are starting to change. I start to have maybe a rasp, the break in my voice. I start to turn down my volume because I'm feeling less confident. So they all kind of play into one another.
I love how you're kind of like, it's kind of like a chain reaction. One thing goes from another, and then it goes to another, and then it builds up in your head. Now, I just want to take a quick moment. If you are watching this live, let us know if you have any questions, put them in the comment. If you are watching a replay of this, you can still drop your questions in the comment. But let us know if you have any thoughts on the top of your mind right now. So I want to bring up a question that an audience member has. So Charles is saying, any recommendations when someone cuts you off during
Ooh.
your pauses? What do you think about that, Karen?
Part one, I think it sucks. Let's be real. It sucks when someone's like, and blah, blah, blah. I just picture like the Peanuts gang, like conversationalists, and you're like, dang it. I was finishing my thought to pivot. And maybe, Kit, you can help me out on this one too, because I think you're a master at leadership in that big area. So when Kit's speaking in front of a lot of people, he knows that there are going to be these uncomfortable questions. We can even call them, it cuts you off, interrupts you, barges in, or kind of gives the unpopular opinion at that moment, and it does throw us off. Taking that deep breath, I usually do let them finish what they're saying instead of kind of combating and coming back at them, and say, oh, let me finish here. I know that that can kind of then create a defensive edge on people. I usually let them finish what their question is, usually a question, what their question is. And then I said, oh, that's an awesome question. I'm going to pivot to this, and we'll have time after to answer that, to adjust, or for me to fill you in on that. Generally, when you are shifting topics, depending on how your meeting or your presentation is going, you likely have already set the stage in a presentation to say, I'm going to have questions at the end. Definitely write them down for me. I can't wait for them. You've kind of set the stage for that. If it's a meeting where people do feel, or you have allowed for free flow conversation, you likely are getting those questions at the end of each topic. So if this is something where that's not the setup, that's not how this has been going, this is what the person is doing, is kind of cutting in, as you've used the words, Charles, to our moment, I then acknowledge, because otherwise they're probably going to keep going, and then pivot with what they have had or have asked and say, actually, your question or your thing may be answered further on, but right now I'm going to continue on Project Legos 1, 2, 3 to give an overview, and that might help you out. Because it sounds like maybe, and I'm kind of speculating, but Charles might be kind of saying it's in a negative way that this person is coming in, and maybe they're like, we are not liking that project, and he's wanting to get off that. So that's kind of how I'd handle it: acknowledging, pivoting, regaining the control of that conversation. Easier said than done.
A three-step framework. You acknowledge, you pivot, and you take back control. So when I want to switch gears around a little bit, Karen. So when it comes to enunciating and actually pronouncing, this is a question that I had when I came from Hong Kong, and it doesn't matter who we are, but when we pronounce our words, let's say it's English, do we have to pronounce every single syllable? You know how sometimes like there's a t at the end, like so we say it all out?
Oh, this thing. I have done a lot of work with clients, and it's stepping stone work. You need to know how to make the sound first before you can pop into the word. And this is a question I got a lot, because when you hear, and this is in American English or American spoken English, when you hear a native speaker throwing out words there, you don't feel like you hear every little sound, every little t, every little d, every little buh. And because we blend. We kind of grab a word and connect it and kind of give a free-flowing sound. One thing I hear clients doing is they're like, all right, Karen and I have worked on all these sounds, and I'm adding them into what I know. And I'm going to say, pause between ideas, pause between ideas. as a phrase, and I'm getting all my sounds, it does not sound natural because I'm stopping at each word or each conjunction, each adjoining phrase. You want to bring your sound, your air, through the entire thought. Some thoughts are longer than others, I get it. But you're going to grab your sentence or your thought, your idea, and you want to connect it as best you can, pausing when you need to get to more air, and then fill out the rest in a smooth transition. So I think that's what Kit's asking is, I know that there are some sounds. I know I want those sounds there because otherwise it maybe changes the word, which then changes the content and the understanding. But I also want this free-flowing this free-flowing thought so that I'm taking seriously and I don't sound like what I'm thinking Kit's alluding to is that, so I don't sound like a robot or, someone that doesn't know what they're talking about.
So yeah, it goes back to the breath and taking our time to gather ourselves at the same time. But of course, I love how you're talking about like the free flow side of things.
Yeah, and connecting it all. I think you do a great job, Kit, of gaining the words on top of one another, but making sure it doesn't sound like one full thing, like a block of sound coming at you, but also letting there be a little bit of spacing between your words, but not in that robotic way, the too slow way that we were talking about a little bit earlier too.
Yeah. So, as I think this is interesting, as you were doing this motion, I'm not sure if you noticed, but do you think that great speakers kind of like when they speak, there's this ebb and flow of their talk or their sentence?
I think when you're talking about ebb and flow, are you talking about their voicing, the way that they're bringing it, or kind of the pattern?
The voicing, the voicing, maybe it's the pitch, it goes up and down, or it's not monotone. Because when you did this, it just reminded me of, okay, well, it's like this pattern. But what are your thoughts as I'm saying that generally? I'm forming the question in my head at the same time.
I love it. I think that there are great speakers, if we're going back to that kind of CEO example where someone's speaking, and if someone told you that person was a CEO or a TED Talk specialist, you'd be like, yeah, I could pick up on that because of this rhythm or this pattern. And I think also what you're saying is their voicing. When their voice goes up and they're kind of, I'm use this word a lot in my work, emphasizing a thought or emphasizing a word. It lets me know the importance of that themed word in that thought or in that sentence. But the way that they traveled there is a smooth transition. And then they kind of like bolded the word for us. And then they finished out in another smooth way, as opposed to kind of started using all different fonts or capitalizations, if you're kind of looking at this as a visual aspect. And I think that you are spot on in that there is a level of smoothing out your speech, but an incline maybe is what you mean in voicing or in tone change. But I also think we all know great speakers, but we also want to be genuine to ourselves and to our own spoken feelings and personality in there.
Yeah. What about that up talk? When I forgot if the term was up talk, or when people end in the form of a question.
You mean
that's what I mean.
It's
At the end, is it up talk? I forgot the term for that.
Yeah, and I actually think they call it something a little bit different, or the street word now is the influencer voicing, the Instagram voicing, where you know what I mean, and they're like, and guys, a lot of people have been asking about this, like they have this like voicing where they keep coming up. When I hear that, I think they're asking me a question, I think. And maybe they are, maybe that is their question in this YouTube presentation or this Instagram influencer speak, where they're modeling their new pair of shoes, or they're doing an unboxing video, or whatever it happens to be that we're all diving into these days. But up talk is exactly that, or it's changed names. It's there's like the Valley Girl speech from like a California of and that nasality speech that they're using. They call it glottal fry. It has a number of different hats, but it is exactly that, where you're squeezing your voice, or you if you do it too often, you might not even realize it, but you're squeezing your musculature in here, or squeezing your throat, and it's kind of contracting or pushing in, and you're hearing a raspy nasal sound. That's kind of tone, what we were talking about earlier, the quality of your voice. And then you're using the pitch, where also we talked about earlier, which is that high or low, low, high. You're kind of going up, and you're using volume. You're turning it up, exactly what we were talking about earlier, but you're manipulating them all in a way that you think others want to hear you speak, because that's what we are all hearing if we're on social media. If anyone's presenting on Facebook Live, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, if anyone's presenting on these areas as, I want to call them marketers, or the term we're using right now is influencers. They're influencing us to buy or to dive into an idea. That's their, what they have felt is powerful, and seems to be that one person was doing it, so another person is doing it, and it kind of is a small chain reaction, like we talked about earlier. Whereas, again, going back to that CEO, that TED Talk speaker, that person we're all drawn to listening to, they don't do that. They don't have that tone change.
Well, Karen, how does one actually not do that up talk?
God, I wish I knew. Just kidding. I feel myself doing it a lot. Even when I'm listening to that, I consume content just like the rest of us, because we can't help it. I do find myself, and it's more so in social areas for me. I get to speak with professionals all day long. But socially, if I'm talking to my sister or a friend, I do find myself getting excited and then going in that direction, keeping myself, again, calm, cool, collected. That breath, slow speech, pausing, and reflecting upon it. I know, Kit, you were the one that pointed this out earlier, but reflecting upon what I'm doing. What am I doing? What am I saying? How am I saying it? And that's huge. Being aware. One thing that I think, Kit, I believe, use in your practice a lot is, while you're an amazing guru at public speaking, which is the act of giving out communication, you are so real in that there is no speaking without listening. There is no projection of my thoughts and my ideas without listening. And whether that's visually listening, like we talked about earlier, looking at my crowd or my audience or the one person I'm speaking with, reading their body language, reading their tones, making that eye contact, and as well as, what are they actually verbally saying to me? What are they vocalizing? I think being able to grab that, understand that, and then take those little alerts, those little moments where I'm either watching my team member, or two, listening to what Kit's saying to me or asking of me, and saying, whoa, I must have been going too fast, or I must not have been clear, or my tone, I might not have sounded so confident because I lowered my volume. Checking in with yourself all the time is important. Yes, but listening to what the other person is doing or saying is, I think, really the key.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you 100%. Listening to yourself and the other people, not just what they are saying out loud, but their body language as well. But at the same time, not getting stuck in your head if they're making a face that is all you, not saying, oh, why are they making that face? Did I say something wrong? But take it with a grain of salt to give you alerts. If that's happening all of the time and they're making sad faces, then you should somehow, notice why they're always having sad, angry faces. So yes.
But who knows? I mean, I'm very facially expressive. So, I mean, you could have me on the other end who's like, who knows? But there are people that don't make faces either. So you need to watch everything. Watching their breathing or listening to their air as well is going to be huge for someone who isn't facially expressive. Maybe they just have a good control, or maybe that's how they listen intently. They don't spend that energy nodding that approval or chiming in with their facial movements, etc. So there are some of us that don't make welcoming facial postures, even though they may really like our ideas.
Yeah. Let's open this up for any questions. If you're watching live, what questions might you have? Drop it in the comments below. I want to bring up this one question. It's going to be a long one, so I'm going to take time to read it, but it's a good one. Boom. Okay. During an important call where I have lots of questions, but the person giving the proposal, sometimes I would need to either correct them or chime in. So this is on Zoom, I believe. The problem would be that this would be a free flow conversation, but sometimes his Zoom lags. It gets cut off, but I'll read the rest. Sometimes his Zoom lags and we end up talking over each other. I'm sure this happened to most of us on Zoom. How should I avoid this? Sometimes the other person doesn't even hear me when this happens. This Zoom lag, and then people start talking over each other. What do you think, Karen?
I just want to clarify. So it sounds like it's a presentation and that this person needs to correct the presenter, but the person is talking, and because of the internet lag, they're interrupting one another. Kit, do you think I have the right understanding?
We can take that approach, and then maybe we can take another approach. But let's take that approach.
Lagging sucks, and it really is terrible when you feel like you're interrupting someone. This happens to me. I mean, I've been doing online work since 2013, and been cruising the Zoom while everybody else has been actually meeting in real life. So this is something I am well versed in, and I have the patience, and the frustration of that is gone for me, and that I already know that it's just gonna stink. So be calm. It is stressful and upsetting. If your chat's enabled, which I know I always like to have that, I can always send a chat and say, there is a lag, and verbally say it as well. There is a bit of a lag. I apologize if it sounds like we're interrupting each other, but I think if we both come from that understanding place, then we can feel like we're not being disrespectful, or I don't mean to give the feeling of being disrespectful toward you. There's a lag, and it's going to sound like I'm interrupting you or talking over you. That's not my intention. I have been on so many meetings or calls where something like that is given to us, the listeners or the team. And I think, okay, it gives me so much power in feeling respected and confidence to say, all right, we've called this out. We've said this is happening. This is going to happen. All right, cool. We've then said, we're going to try and work through it. And I'd like you all to be understanding of that. We're all in this together now. We're now in this group. We're all feeling the same way. And we're going to allow ourselves longer pauses. So you can say, as a problem solve, I'm going to pause a little longer after my thought or after my correction, so that you don't feel like I'm interrupting you after that, so that the person comes in, I guess, and it sounds like they're going to correct themselves or correct the slide or what have you, and fix the number that maybe they misspoke and said 75% instead of 80%. And they can come back, and that information is delivered appropriately, is what I think the question was in reference to.
Well, what you said, Karen, I think was really smooth. You were just, woo. I wish people can bring you along when that happens, and they can just pop your message on there and say, hey. But I'm expressing empathy, right? You were saying, hey, I'm sorry, it's lagging, but I don't mean to, it's not my intention to interrupt you. So please know that. I think once you're saying that out loud, of course, everyone understands the lag side of things. And this explains a lot of, okay, we're cutting each other off, but you are the bigger person to talk about what's happening. in the situation. So Karen, I want to take this time now. I want to bring up one more comment, and then if you have anything else to share, would love to hear it. But we have Haroon saying, any additional tips on how to enhance the influence and impact that our presentation and speech has over our audience? What do you think, Karen? I'll give something, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very glad you're going to give something, because I think I can learn from this question as well. I think when I hear people speaking of me or about me and the way that I influence, everybody has their own, I'm going to call it a personality. Well, we all have our own personalities, thank goodness, but personality in speaking and then personality in presentations. So we're kind of already marked a little bit. I think if you were to receive an email from me and you get to know me, you think, oh, I hear you speaking in that email when you send it, because I email with my personality as well. I think it's really important for me, it's really important to stay true to my genuine self, not just as a professional, but as me, as Karen, and have my tone matches my voicing, matches my theme, matches the energy I'm giving to influence my audience. I think the things that I hear, or I know the things that I hear that other people comment on are, I'm even toned, I'm calm, I am comforting, and I give that sort of welcoming presence when I'm speaking. And that's the energy I give. And I do think that influences in a way that calms, feels confident, feels welcoming for other people to take on. So I think what they're speaking to, and Kid's the expert in this one, but is knowing how you want to influence and then presenting that in your true way as well.
Well,
I'm handing it over to you because you're going to do better.
What you said was great. It was like you said, putting personality in your email. Yeah, that should come out across when you are doing your presentation as well. You are still yourself. So that's one of the best things and one of the hardest things. Many people get anxious just to be authentic and be nervous. One tip that I would give if you want to be more influential or make more of an impact the next time you present, and this is something that you can actually count, you need to use the word you, Y-O-U, more. The words I and we, they're good, but when you use the word you, even on the top of your presentation slides, here's what you'll learn today. Some of the things you'll take away. Your audience ears will just perk up, because who are you talking about? You, the audience. So once you use the word you can just count it out. Next time you do a presentation, you're in a meeting, you can be thinking, okay, how many times did I use the word you? Or if you have a transcript of your presentation, really, what's more, I, you, or we? And the best thing is to have an equal balance of I, you, and we. So if you're using always I, your audience is going to be a lot more bored, depending on the situation. Yeah.
And I think that's a great follow-up for you, Kit, or for us, is Kit said, depending on your situation. So on the you front, presentation, I actually wrote it down to remind myself, you, because that's for your audience. But if you're having a difficult conversation with someone, and I'm going to erase the word difficult, an uncomfortable conversation with someone, be that a loved one, a family member, a boss, a coworker, if I come at that person and I say, you, it feels like it can feel like an accusation. So use the word you as your power, as a strength. To bring everyone together, you want to use the word you to make them feel empowered and feel confident in themselves. Yes, you want to use the word you in your training and your learning. But if it's an uncomfortable situation, you can then take on the power, or that kind of that negative aspect of, I feel that maybe we got off on the wrong foot, instead of saying, you really, with your interruptions, make me feel like we got off on the wrong foot. So there is a different use of the word you. And what Kit's saying, it directly answers the question that we needed. But I wanted to put that out there for those of us that are still maybe new to presenting or new to this public speaking realm. It's important to remember that, gosh, feelings and emotions exist even in the business world.
They exist. Fact check.
Fact check for
Okay.
sure.
As we're winding down now, Kevin, I have one last thing to ask you. But before we do that, if people want to learn more about you, work with you, where's the best place to go to follow you?
To follow me, you can pop over to my website if you're wanting to look into more information about my profession. So I'm a speech therapist, but I work primarily in English pronunciation or accent reduction. As Kit kind of mentioned in the beginning in my awesome intro, I work with amazing people. I think it's definitely an important moment to say that my clients are so ambitious and they have so much knowledge and in their fields and their specialty. I switch from hour to hour from a CEO of a marketing company to someone in finance to someone in tech to a medical professional. I get to switch over into so many, I'm going to call them industries. The things that my clients have to share and give to each one of us in their field is amazing. So I am so lucky that I get to do that. So if you want to dive in and more knowledge of what accent reduction is, you are welcome to visit my website at AstiNova.com. I am just kind of like a little bridge. I help bridge the gap between the message that my clients want to give to people in their realm, and I just help them be understood. I help them to gain that confidence and gain that space to say, I'm the expert. I know about X, Y, and Z, and I'm trying to give you this message, or I'm trying to teach you or guide you or help this patient. And I want to make sure that my message is being taken seriously, is being understood, and that it's clear. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can go to my website. You can also email me. I love helping others. That's just something, where I started. Why I'm a speech therapist is because I like to give and it feels good. So you can email me, Karen@AstiNova.com. And I'd love to help answer your questions. I always take the time to hop on our dreaded Zoom calls. We can use Google Hangouts if you'd like to, and answer a question that you may have, to have a consultation. Maybe you're actually not an English as a second language speaker. Maybe you're in HR and you have some employees that you think would benefit from that to help increase morale or confidence. I can definitely give you some good talking points on, how to approach that with somebody. Everyone's usually pretty welcoming if you're letting them know that you want to help benefit them and you want to help them grow, even if it's you.
Yeah, so make sure you learn more about Karen. Go to her website, AstiNova.com. Karen is amazing. Okay, one last thing before we go. And of course, if you did not subscribe to the Boston Speaks channel yet, make sure you go over to the Boston Speaks channel and hit subscribe, because actually, me and Karen, we did an interview a long time ago. I'm going to put that back up on the YouTube channel in the near future. I'll probably include it in the link somewhere. Do you remember that interview, Karen?
I do. And I also, as I was preparing for today, because I was like, what are the important things that I want to talk about? I wonder if we're talking about the same things, and that's how important I think they are. And if we are, that's how important these things are. Maybe I've gained some new experience. I want to say that was like 4 or 5 years ago that we did that interview. A while back. We were babies back then.
Yeah, but the information is still important. It's still the same. Yes,
the information is huge. It's still gold. Maybe the social media platforms have changed since then. Maybe I'm more eloquently of a speaker. Maybe Kit is more visually effective. Who knows how many changes we've made in ourselves and in our careers. This stuff is huge. I think it's something that I use professionally, of course, but in my personal life, I want the person that I'm speaking with to think that they're respected, and I want them to understand what I'm saying.
Karen, before we go, if there's one thing, okay, if there's only one thing that our audience can take action on after watching this video, what is that one thing?
I'm going to say, you mean out of my actions that I suggested?
Or even a new one. It could be the same, some things that you said, or a new one.
All right, new thing then. Believe in yourself. Believe in your idea. Believe in your message. Believe in your feelings. And know that those are genuine because they're popping up for a reason. Those are yours. They're not anybody else's. And then you take your time internally to say, how do I give this thought, this feeling, this emotion to the audience, to the speaker, to whomever it is I'm having that conversation with, and find the best way that represents you to be genuine and true to yourself and to that thought and feeling. It's very easy to feel run over, to feel stepped on, to feel, as Charles was asking, or as a couple of our other speakers are asking, to feel spoken over, to feel interrupted, to feel cut in on. So believing in your message and your idea is huge. Believing in yourself is going to give you the ability to give that information and to listen. Because if I'm feeling uncomfortable or self-conscious, I'm probably not listening because I'm having that feeling spin around inside of me anyway. So I'm not listening to the other people at that moment.
Yeah. So believe in yourself. That's a big one.
It's hard.
Thank you for saying that and giving us that reminder. So, Karen, thank you once again for joining me today to talk about how to speak clearly and enunciate well. Any last words before we go?
Kit, you're amazing. And I can't imagine a better, I'm going to call you a team member in the industry of communication. You know, there's all sorts of realms. There are people that specify or specifically work on body language and those that work on breathing. There are, practices out there that are strictly for the breathing that we were talking about earlier. And I really appreciate your community because I think it's so welcoming. And I've gotten to sit in on a lot of Kit's work, and it feels so awesome to be there. So I really appreciate the community you've built because it helps the community I build.
Thank you, Karen. And I'm sure everyone's going to give you a virtual applause, whether they're watching live or the replay of this. So, Karen, thank you once again. And for the rest of you, if you are still watching right now, I really want you to take action on what Karen said. Believe in yourself. You have a message. You have stories. You have things to say that other people want to hear. So keep on working on your speaking, whether if it's knowing how to breathe, knowing how to slow down, or maybe knowing how to persuade others. And if you have not subscribed to the BostonSpeaks channel, make sure you do so you can watch this interview again and keep on practicing your speaking so you can become a better speaker and leader. Again, my name is Kit Pang. I want to say thank you again to Karen Astin. Go visit her website. And thank you for all of you that are tuning in today. Have